Hi, welcome back to Future Fast. And once again, we have Archana with us. And if you have not listened to the previous two parts of our conversations, wherein she shares about her journey, which is very interesting, I urge you to go and listen to it. And in the second part is where we talk about Slowthreads. That's the business she runs. And what's happening in that is what you can hear in that conversation. And in this part, Archana, welcome to Future Fast. We
Thank
want
you,
to
Nat.
hear you talk about your perspectives on future. What do you think future holds for you?
I think for slow fashion as such itself, there are challenges, and I think I'll probably talk about that as well. But there is more awareness right now. People are more aware of, why it's important to be more, conscious of your consumption in terms of anything for that matter, not just fashion. Because, we are realizing the impact, the environmental impact it's having. So I think everywhere there is talk about why sustainability is important. Reason being, it is impacting the people around us, and at some point, it's going to be imperative for you to get onto that bandwagon. Only problem is affordability. The problem of pricing, and the reason why sustainable fashion is not affordable is also because the consumption of sustainable products is lower right now. It's all a vicious cycle, in fact. Organic products like organic cotton, all of that is expensive because not everybody, it's all desi breed of cotton. Desi breed of cotton is predominantly organic. We did have desi breed of cotton, which was massively consumed earlier on. Eventually, of course, with, hybrid cotton that came in, which became cheaper, and, all brands kind of propagated the use of hybrid cotton. We started producing more of that, which has an environmental impact. It consumes more water, a lot of side effects to that. But if we went back to the desi breed of cotton, like the kind of cotton that we're using, which needs no resources in terms of water, it's all, rain fed. It's a low maintenance crop. So it becomes easier, and then the price will come down. If there's more demand, more supply, the prices come down. I think it's all a cycle. I don't know if that'll happen in the near future. It's not going to be easy, because there is,
You mean the
fast
price drop, whether it will
price
be
drop.
cheaper or affordable?
Yes, absolutely. The price drop, because fast fashion companies are giants. They have a big influence on the industry, and it's very
Most of
difficult.
them also have a sustainable brand and all that, right? I think pretty much
That's
everybody talk about it.
Yes. So that's what's also happening, because everybody is talking about sustainability, and, it is considered like, I think what's happening is people are being shamed when they don't adopt sustainability and they go to brands that are not sustainable. Like, for example, I don't know if you're hearing this whole campaign on this brand called Shein. They're a big fast fashion brand.
Okay.
And Hollywood, in fact, came out with a massive campaign against Shein's products. They actually had, quite key actors kind of talking through the impact of Shein.
Oh,
You know,
Shein is that Chinese brand, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
I think Reliance is bringing them to India now.
yes.
So I think so. People don't. They're trying to bring in that whole feeling of don't associate yourself with it, because you're associating yourself with the brand that leads to
Oh, but
so an impact.
the Shein story was great story. I think it was a lot talked about few years back.
Yeah, they've grown tremendously, and
Yeah.
they are a big fast fashion brand. But also, with recent tests that they've been running, they find that a lot of their garments have a lot of lead in them. And there's a lot of, lead-related poisoning that can happen, not just for people who are making them, but also people who are wearing them. More lead than your body can handle, apparently. So that could be the dyes that they're using, could be a multitude of factors as well. So I think it is important for slow fashion brands to differentiate themselves, or sustainable brands to differentiate themselves. And how can they do it? It's a long process. It won't happen. There are regulations that are being brought in place for brands to be more sustainable. They're being held accountable. They're being told that, tell me, how are you protecting the environment? How are you making sure that the products that the end user responsibility is coming on the brand as well? A lot of things are happening in the industry. There is more awareness. So brands will be forced to change as well, which is why you see this greenwashing, where every fast fashion brand tends to have a sustainable line. You can never be a sustainable brand if you are a fast fashion brand. They just don't go hand in hand at all, because absolute
Okay,
clash.
so you think it's greenwashing. Okay.
Absolute greenwashing. And I think it's well known in the industry that it is happening. It is quite rampant, in fact. The other thing is prices and accessibility continue to. So it will be a challenge for slow fashion brands, because what might happen in the interim is slow fashion will limit its access to only the affluent or the people who think, okay, I will only go for a sustainable product, unfortunately.
Which is kind
Which
of
is
what
not,
it is.
yeah, which is what it is. You can't really do much with that. But
So from the customer demography will not change.
at least not in the near future, because it's not affordable yet. When it gets to the point of it being affordable, of course, it'll change. We were talking about it, bringing in designs which, cater to a range of customers. The variety is the issue with slow
So
fashion,
do
because
you do you see the boutiques of your kind will multiply?
they are already there. There are a lot of small, so what I've noticed, and this is a trend that I see, there are a lot of small brands, which mix, they're either handmade or they are sustainable, or they're slow made. Any of that, you can categorize into any of those. They are available, they're growing probably on social media slowly. They grow in small numbers, and I can see what started out as a very small a brand which had very few products slowly scale up, and I see that there are more people wearing the brand because they love what they're seeing. They love the feel of it, they love what, the kind of clothing they're coming up with. And I also see this whole homegrown brand, let's encourage them, that whole approach that's kind of setting in. Those are the only kind of things that will really work for a small brand, that is, that's a small slow fashion brand or a small sustainable brand, for them to kind of grow. And eventually you will never hit the kind of scale that a fast fashion brand does if you are truly sustainable, because then you're going against the whole principle of sustainability. You're not mass producing, you're not going to make them
Um,
cheap.
but what will happen to your aspirations of, say, somebody internationally buying it? I mean, in that sense. I mean,
As in, if you could elaborate a bit more
your
on.
brand, you want, I mean, if you aspire to sell this, your brand, your products outside of India, right? So, uh, do you see such an aspiration? And if you have, uh, how do you
How do you
associate
kind of
this?
work
Yeah.
towards that, right? So, I do have a few customers who buy, from the US, Malaysia, and Singapore predominantly. I mean, that's where I think, and then mostly the Indian population that's buying from me. But what I do think is essential is, if I do intend to, start, selling it through established outlets, multi-brand stores, let's say in the US or anywhere, there are things like I need to get my certification in order, which I have not done yet. And as a small brand, it's not really easy to do
So,
that
but
very.
do you think going forward in future, these kind of things will happen where a small niche brand,
It's
which
happening even now as we talk,
okay,
Nanju. So there are smaller, I wouldn't say they're very small, but they're reasonably smaller when compared to the other scale of brands. There's a brand called No Nasties. So what's also happening is they have organized, they have organizations like Good on You. What they do is they actually verify and certify that a brand is, they rate a brand on sustainability, saying how honest, transparent are they in terms of the way they are actually being ethical, they are using sustainable products, they do follow all those practices, and they actually rate them on a scale of 1
and
to 5.
oh, interesting. And what does it cost if you have to get something done like that?
So what you do is you don't pay any money really.
You
I
don't?
don't know so I don't know if the certification, the final process is, but they certify you only based on you providing them details, saying this is what we do. They ask you for information. There is a long process for that. So there is one brand from India that really stands out and have got a very good rating, and they're called No Nasties. They're a sustainable brand.
Where are they based out of?
They're based out of Goa. They're based out
Oh,
of,
interesting.
yeah. They're a very good brand. They are truly sustainable.
So
They're
what,
very
selling again on Instagram, or they're also
they
on other
they
platforms?
started as a t-shirt company. They were only doing t-shirts, and eventually, so they predominantly they do knitwear, but they do organic knitwear, and they've also started doing a lot. So they're very open with their supply chain. They talk about who they're working with, where they're sourcing their cotton from, right down to that. And so they have been, they have been credited with being really truly sustainable. So I think that aspiration is there for a brand like me as well, because I think it is possible.
So,
But
tell me, Archana, what would give a sense of security for an entrepreneur? Say you, if you have to publish where you are sourcing from, if you are giving source of all your supplies, right? So,
yeah.
what is that aspect of confidence that keeps you away from the sense of insecurity of somebody copying the same thing and doing it better than you? What is that?
See, I think what differentiates me is also our design. So the fabric is something that anybody can use. So I've been open. We pick Kala cotton. We pick hemp from a certain company. We've talked about it. Um,
So
the
you also will say publish everything out in the public that okay, this is where we are.
I have, in fact, I've done that in the past as well. I've talked about who I work with in terms of my, manufacturing unit that we
So
work in,
there is no fear that okay, somebody copies, uses the same suppliers and get this done. And
I think it is everybody will copy no matter what.
so
So
might
if
as well tell okay, this is what I do.
it doesn't make a difference, honestly, I think the
Okay.
differentiator is going to be the way I kind of run with it. It won't make everybody
I
will
think
get
this
copy.
is one big difference from how I mean, this is exactly not what a large company does, right? They won't want to disclose their
No,
suppliers.
but I think a lot that culture, especially in fashion, is coming out. So every brand is supposed to mention who their manufacturers are in a way. They do. They are required to mention who they get,
Okay.
they're sourcing it from. They are required to kind of publish that at some
Okay.
point or the other. So
So it's
that's why if you're
becoming a
truly,
practice now.
it is becoming a practice. So you may not get into the specifics. You may have multiple manufacturers, maybe like if I take a big brand like maybe Zara or H&M, they have all over India. So I'm saying, but predominantly, and that it's so, which is why transparency is being encouraged. First, if you look at No Nasties as a brand, they're out there, they're talking about it. I think it is seen as a sign of a brand that anybody can trust. Oh, we know where they're getting their cotton from. I even know it, Rajeshwari Mills in Kolkata, and so it's so clear. They talk about it. They say this is where we're doing it from. This the designs are all in house, and this is what we're doing. They're very open about it. It takes a lot to be that way, but I think because of which they are where they are now. They've grown. They have, globally they are being appreciated for
Oh,
that as
they're
well.
selling
Yeah.
globally as well?
Yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely. They have customers abroad as well. So good on you. The app is an international, they basically verify it. They're not from India. They're a global verifying organization. And they certified that, No Nasties is, I think they had a rating of 4 or 5. And then very few brands get a 4 or a 5, which is really honest, open, sustainable, and all of that. So I aspire to be something, I hope we get to that point because I am in awe of that brand in terms of their transparency and the way they approach sustainability. But of course, it's taken them time. They are an old brand. I understand they're more than 10, 12 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, see, I mean, there's so many conversations, right? So you already also mentioned in our previous conversation that your customers range from 30 to 60, and you also have some 60 plus people.
Yeah.
So how do you see this very sense of fashion changing? I remember nearly 20 years ago, there was a team. There was somebody I met there. He was working with Philips, I think, if I'm not wrong. They were talking about working on a technology to change the color of the fabric. So I wear something for my office, let's say, and I want to step out. I can change the fabric color when I go out.
Yeah.
So something like that. I mean, this was nearly 20 years ago. So it's not come about yet, but now I see there are a lot of people working on it. So do you see those kind of tech play happening here? And also, how do you see the artisans coping with all this
Changes that are happening.
changes that are happening?
I think as long there is a lot of emphasis on handmade, and I'm not saying that the weavers are a dying breed because the problem is they don't make as much money. There are not too many brands engaging with them,
But
unfortunately.
honestly, is that a direction should we be going? Because see, working with machines, it's a smart way to do. Why why we still want somebody to do something machine can do much faster, perhaps even better on by hand, and we need to sustain. I mean, why is this argument relevant?
I think what happens was, yes, you have machines. I mean, and if you ask me, yes, it does make life easier. It makes it cheaper. It makes the product cheaper for somebody to buy. But when if you talk of it that way, then digital art is going to be more important than somebody drawing or painting at some point. Do you think the the value of a hand painted
It's a
picture?
creativity, end of the day, right? See,
Exactly.
the
It's
tool
the same way.
accesses both of us have, but you are able to create something better, and digital is only a way of doing it. Instead of
Absolutely.
color and paint, you use digital. So considering that,
Absolutely.
why not do machine? What is wrong with why handmade? That's what
Your
I'm.
your answer lies in exactly there, because there is creativity in that. Even in weaves, there are different ways a weave can kind of play out, the kind
So
of craftsmanship
so
that's involved in
so
it.
do
Yes,
you
you have a
think?
machine.
Huh,
It's like being digital. Like, why not a digital painting instead? Why do I need an
I,
artist to
I
draw
think it will
there?
come about. I think it's a matter of time.
But so it will probably come about. But do you think there is any value in a hand-drawn picture though?
See, I think it's the point of time that we come from that. See, it's a starting point that matters, right? See, see, at least for me, uh, we got a TV. Uh, I think when I came to fourth standard or something, right? So before that, we used to go to a neighbor's house, and so TV was like, wow. So after some time, TV is there in our house, no such excitement. You
Mm,
take it for
mm,
granted. But
mm.
then the multi channels came in, international channels came in. Today, we don't even have a TV, we just use a
Yeah,
Fire Stick, right?
yeah.
So, so every time something new comes, you do because I
Novelty.
mean that
Mm.
okay, that was nice. Those days were good. When there was only one channel, you still had time to chat. People, I mean, it's just that uh, people tend to find good and bad with everything new, right? I mean, there
Mm,
was a time
mm,
I was talking to somebody 450 years ago when printing press came. There were
mm.
great intellectuals on record have said reading will destroy humanity. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
we
were
do have a proper
intellectuals of that time.
reading it.
They were
Yeah,
brilliant minds,
yeah.
absolutely nothing to question their brilliance. They were great intellectuals, but they said reading will destroy human minds. They will make them mad.
Mm.
And I don't know if you remember, in my time when TV was there, people used to call it idiot box. With
Yeah, yeah. I
it
remember
will
in my
become
time as
idiot.
well, as I was
See,
growing up.
my
Yeah.
children don't understand that reference at all. What is that to do with idiot? I mean, right? Because we didn't use it because we realized that we didn't become idiots by watching. You can still be an
Luckily,
idiot without watching it, right?
yeah.
but but that reference changed, and we took it. And today, a lot of people say phone is spoiling people, internet is spoiling people. Now people are referring to AI will spoil. I mean, even kill. But I think it's just that you want to. We as humans want to hold on to everything old, right?
Yeah.
Value for antique and the behavior. I mean, culture, right? It's a
Yeah. But is there
tradition.
something wrong in that? I think that so there is an audience for everything. There is an audience for handmade. There is an audience for machine made. I think it'll cater to different
No,
kinds of.
so do you still see the same thing sustaining? One, from a point of taste. Two, also you said they are a dying breed,
They're
right? I mean,
dying breed, because what's happening is there's a lot more effort and they don't make as much money as they would when they go. Literally, their
it
sons
is
and
a
daughters are going
contradiction, right?
out
They
and
should
getting
actually be
jobs.
making more money because that is what actually you charge more because it's handmade.
No. So, but there are very few people who are really engaging the weavers. Like I was saying, why is it expensive right now? The reason is exactly that. So there are fewer people engaging with weavers, few people picking up handmade fabrics because they're expensive. And so what's happening is they're catering to a small group of people, and they don't make so much money, which you get by going en masse. So then they're left with only catering to that lot. Yes, they charge you a premium because they're only catering to a few, a smaller group of people. On the other hand, machine made is cheaper, that doesn't take time, doesn't have people involved, and it's produced in mass and it's definitely available at a much lower rate. So what's happening is for them to be employed, or in a place house, they actually go out and get jobs. because they don't want to be a weaver. They think, a lot of weavers say that, their sons, their daughters don't want to be weavers because they don't consider it, what do I say? They want to make money. They want to move out. They don't want to live the life their parents live. They don't want to live, in a way where they don't have money. They have to wait for something to work out for them, which is rare. Not many orders come. Like the weaver that I work with, he does, and I mean, there are other weavers as well. The person I work with, he tells me, he says, he comes back, and my numbers are very few. I don't give him, big orders because naturally we're a small startup. So he comes back to me saying, if not, I ask him, what do you do? He says, then I go back to farming, but not like that's giving him too much money either. Yeah. So they switch
So do
between
you
farming
also
and
recommend these weavers to your...
the people who ask me, I kind of tell them, you could reach out to them, and I give
You're
them.
saying they can't get business through the year?
Not all through. They are work. So the good thing is they become savvy. This weaver of mine, I connected with him through Instagram. He was on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
So I don't know if everybody's on Instagram though, but they are. And he had a nice profile. So I forget which institution it is. They work with weavers in the community. They teach them to use social media. I forget, Kala something, I forget the name. And so he was working, he had gone through their classes. They teach them how to run a business and things like that. So they engage them. And so he had an account on Instagram. And when I was researching, I found him on Instagram. I found there's a database. There's a national database of people who are weavers, who are artisans. Yeah, from the government, the textile
Okay.
website. So
And this training is all given by the government agencies.
Yeah, that is there. That's separate. But I found him on Instagram because there were too many weavers there, and I couldn't really see their work because it was just contact details and I had to reach out to them. And you don't know if it's in line with what you want. I went to his page. He had a nice page, reasonably nice page. And I reached out to him. And then finally, I actually went to Kutch and met him. It was an amazing experience. So it was good that way. So because he was savvy enough to be on Instagram, I could see his work. I thought, okay, it'll be in line with what I want.
So how do you see the role of influencers? Because I think selling on Instagram is a lot about influencers. In fact, people make actually good money as an influencer itself.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's okay to even call them as entrepreneurs in that sense, but there is, I mean, what the way, I mean, they're making a brand of themselves, they're making business out of it.
Yeah.
And how do you see that in your context? As a slow fashion, it seems very logical to employ influencers. Do you work with influencers, and what kind of influencers, if you do?
So I think it's really important that you pick the right kind of influencers, especially if you're a sustainable brand, to represent your brand. Because what happens is the person who's wearing it is conveying a message depending on what values they hold or what they talk about. Now, if you have somebody who's talking about, they have this term called hauls, where they just constantly wear something new out of a brand and they showcase that and so on and so forth. And you don't want really someone who doesn't understand the impact of mass consumption to be wearing your clothing and then talking about it, because I think it kind of is counterproductive. So what I did do is I did reach out to people, women that I thought were women of substance, in my opinion. And how I thought of that was, for example, I mentioned this earlier as well, that I reached out to the ex-CEO of Okai. I had reached out to her because as a brand, we had followed their story and I really liked what they had done and what she stood for. So I reached out to her and I asked her to try our, dress out. I said, pick a design, tell me what you like. See if you like it. If you like it, feel free to share it. If you don't, feel free to not bother about it. And I, naturally, because it's something where I wanted her to really experience it and talk about it. So, and she did. She was nice enough. She did try it. There were some hiccups in terms of delivery and how it was getting delivered and all of that, but she was very patient. She tried it on and she did give us, feedback. She loved the hemp product. We gave her a hemp shirt dress, which she really picked. She chose from our designs. She said it was very comfortable. She really enjoyed wearing it. So I've always only worked with people like, then there was initially what I had done is I'd reached out to an actress called Reema Kalingal. She is from the South. She is from, the Malayalam industry. She's a producer. She's an actor. She's generally very vocal about women's rights and, so on and so forth. I like what she stands for. And hence, I kind of reached out to her. She also was really nice. She was very, she is a celebrity. She's quite well known in the Malayalam industry. So I asked her, I said, this is what we have in mind. And I told her I don't have big budget. So when I go, I think I'm very open and I'm very upfront, and only people who are okay with, right? People are not they are not commercial. They are not doing it for money per se. They're doing it because they don't mind supporting a small brand, and also because I feel like they stand for something which, as a brand, we like. We kind of look up to. One person had built a brand ground up. She worked with artisans and really kind of empowered them over the course of time. This other person really stands a ground on the kind of, for women in general, not just in Kerala, but in the film industry and all that. She kind of was quite vocal. She spoke about it. And I thought, she stood for something and she stood her ground on something. And we kind of reached out to her. So I'm kind of specific about the kind of people we reach out to, because I want us to convey that through our brand. I don't want it to be a mass brand and that just picks every influencer across, who come up to us and say, we've had people reach out. Sometimes we just don't think we align. Our values really align. I don't think as a brand we align with them. So very respectfully, I tell them, we aren't really looking for that. And then we move on. So I think it's essential we do that, especially because that's what you're conveying through your brand. That's what your messaging is. And it's important that you reach out to people who influence other people in their decision, because it helps a small brand to really reach out to more people. They have a network of people. It helps us to reach out to them. So it's essential that we tap into that. But it's also essential that you tap into the right kind of people, because you don't want your messaging diluted by the person you're choosing, to portray or to represent your brand.
Right. Tell me, do you see a point in time where another designer reaches out to you and say that you have put all this infrastructure, the source, supplier, manufacturer, everything is in place. So if another designer comes and says, can I write the same thing, my own design, my own brand?
Okay.
So you're
calling white labeling, basically?
Not white label.
Okay.
So another designer who's aspiring to do something like this, create her own brand like you have.
Yeah.
She likes this whole concept and she dabbles with her own design. So, but she obviously has to go through the full cycle of identifying all these people. Or perhaps since you have put it out, she could probably reach out to them. But if she says that, listen, I just am a designer. So can you manage this part? Can you handle this part for me? But it will be my own brand. So do you see yourself providing a service for creating few more slow threads in the future?
I think if it's going to be, the way I look at it is, right now we are just a brand. Slowthreads is a single brand. Correct. I don't see another person replicating Slowthreads, because I don't think I'd be comfortable with that. But what I am happy to do is help them in that process of them building their own version of Slowthreads, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, exactly that. But only thing is riding on your ecosystem that you have created for yourself.
I think then it'll be about, what kind of brand are they? Are they a sustainable brand? If they're going to be, they can't be a mass producing brand, because my ecosystem,
which is not the case, right?
Yeah, so it won't work for them. I'm happy to do that, because then, of course, that whole structure works differently. I'll be consulting for them. So I haven't really thought on those lines, but I'm never saying no to any opportunity to kind of, extend this in any way I can.
No, I was just asking, since you mentioned that slow fashion will be slow from a point of adoption for the obvious reasons, right?
Yeah.
So in that scenario, if more people come into it also, it would be the same small ecosystem. So do you also see yourself playing an ecosystem role, because the size scale is not an option, right? That's what you also say.
Yeah.
So when you say that is not an option, is there a way you actually can look at yourself operating more like a platform, enabling other designers to work with, because otherwise they also have to go through the same learning cycle of.
So Nanju, the team that I work with is very small right now. So I don't know if they'll have the bandwidth to extend out to as many. I'd love to be a platform at some point in time, but I think that would mean I'd need to get few more weavers into my fold, few more manufacturers. It can't just be one team because they're a small team, right? They do small batch production, which itself means the volume that they can handle is much smaller. So I'm happy for them to be able to handle whatever else they can handle up to their capacity. So it would mean that I'll have to have a system in place where I'm onboarding a lot more, which is a good thing to do, because if I can extend it out to smaller, people who are starting on sustainable brands, and if I am successful, I don't think I'm there yet. I have a long way to go, but if I am successful where I have a system that works for sure. I have a team that I work with, the manufacturer who is, we are at the same wavelength. He understands my design requirements. He's able to emote and bring that out into, reality. And I think that's very rare, and we really sync well that way. Similarly with my weaver as well. It's taken us a while. We do go back and forth, and weavers, they have that much exposure, but still, I think we've reached a point where it's easy for me to get work done. And he understands what I want. He understands, like, I am very insistent we don't use synthetic dyes, because I think they work with either. My weaver doesn't only work with azo free dyes. They work with natural, they work with azo, they work with others. So he knows what I want. He'll only use the kind of fabric and the dyes that will work for me. So that system works, but it's a very small system that can handle this much. So if I'm becoming a platform, it means I need to start making sure I have more people who align with the way of working and with our value system as well. So that's a process. If that's where I intend to go, I think that's where it'll get to. But right now, I haven't seen it in that manner. But I'm not close to that. I think it's a good way of growing as well. Because then if you become a platform that's engaging a small brand to onboard quickly, because I've had this struggle of onboarding myself by learning, researching, it saves them that trouble. I'm happy to do that. But yeah, it'll take a while though. Yeah.
Well, and another thing is, how do you see the personalization? Because I think personalization is another thing which is,
yes.
I mean, not just fashion, right? Even medicine is becoming personalized. Everything is personalized. So how do you see that in the slow fashion? Because as such, you're a small batch, so there is a better scope for you to offer personalization than a
bigger brand, a mass scale brand.
So
yes.
how do you see that? Do you see that as a driving factor in future?
It already is a driving factor in many sustainable brands right now, because made to order is a good thing. One, you don't overproduce. You're making only what's needed based on order being placed. And that's a very good system to have in place. The only problem is it's custom made. So, your cost does go up. But what if you can kind of work that out where, there is a slight cost element. So if that can be shared with the customer, where the customer gets to have the benefit of wearing something that's personal to her. It fits her the way it should fit her body type and, all of that. And her preference rather, So I think that is already in place. A lot of brands are doing customization. You reach out to them, but the customization works in such a way that you won't become a tailoring unit where you do anything based on the customer's design, because then there are tailors for that. But you will customize it to their size and shape and the length and all of that, we do that. That's definitely already in place, and it will only
that's a basic expectation. What about customizing at a design level, design stage? If
that would make, so there are businesses that do there's a brand called I think it's Binks, Bink, BINK.
Okay.
Yeah, so what they do is they do tailoring, which is customizing any design, any fabric you'd like in. And it's according
so as a customer, I upload the design.
Yes. You tell them what you want, and they kind of, I think they help you choose a fabric as well. I don't think you need to send your fabric either. I think it's like that. I'm not sure. But they are a good system in place where a lot of people can. So it's basically.
Do you classify that as a slow fashion then?
it could be slow fashion. It may not be sustainable, because doesn't mean they're using only sustainable products. They may be using rayon, synthetic, depending on what the customer is really asking, right? So you can't really call it sustainable. It could be a slower process because it's based on demand. You're only doing made to order. I don't know about fair wages. I don't know whether if that's followed or not. I don't have visibility of how that works in Binks or any other brand that kind of talks about it. So there are brands that are doing that. It is basically tailoring service, but it's personalization, because there is demand for that, and it has grown. That brand has grown. I remember seeing it, being a really small brand, and I've seen there's a lot more demand for that.
Based in India?
Yeah, very much based in India. I don't remember which city though, but very much based in India.
So you see that kind of segment also growing big?
Absolutely. So most people.
So do you also plan to get into that?
No, not really, Nanju, because that would mean I need to have a tailoring unit in place. And that I think is a little, that's a fair amount of customization. Here, my team, and there's a design sense that I have and I go with, and my team kind of works with that. We create patterns, and then they use that to make our garments. Here, it's going to be absolutely free flow, depending on what the customer wants. There's chances for error. There's other complexities involved. It's a lot more difficult to do it if I were to do it, because I don't have a manufacturing unit in-house either. I work with someone who has a manufacturing unit. So it doesn't really work for, my kind of setup. And even if you had a manufacturing unit, to do each piece individually is also higher cost, more prone to error. The fit, it's a lot of work. So I don't see myself getting into that at all.
Do you see yourself using AI-enabled
virtual garment,
stylist, right? For your customer could interact with like a chat bot, but only thing is today with the generative AI, it can be a lot more engaging.
Yeah.
So do you use that right now, or do you?
I don't use that right now. I'd really like, so the way I look at it is as a brand, because we're really small. What I do want to do is first, I'd like virtual try-ons in the first go, where people at least get to see the garment, put their picture, and then they know how it looks on them. That's the first step. Maybe the next step.
You're getting that stitched into your website now.
And yeah, it'll not anytime now. Not anytime now. Eventually, I think that'll be the future.
Or are you looking at it as a mobile app or a web app?
No, it'll only be a web app at the moment. I think mobile app makes sense when you kind of reach a certain volume, and that'll be a much higher volume. I don't think at the current moment it warrants a web app. I mean, a mobile app rather. So I am going to have a website right now. I think it works that way. A web app is easier.
Yeah. So when do you see the AI integration coming in your business?
Nanju, I'm going to be a slow adopter. True to our brand's ethos.
That's a good excuse. See, I'm Slowthreads.
So I am going to be a slow adopter, because I need to understand how this works. I need to understand the commercial angle of, how much it's going to impact us as a brand. We're still very small. I mean, for anybody else listening in, I am a startup. We're 2 years old. We're still growing. We're still learning. There's so many things we've not done. So while we get the basics fixed, I think for me to immediately jump into AI would be a bit naive. I don't want to do that, because I'll be putting my feet into too many things. I think I'd like to go one step at a time. And this is just my journey, for Slowthreads. So it won't be immediate, but I think it'll become imperative, because a lot of brands will be doing that. And when it comes to that, I may not be the first brand doing that or getting into it among slow fashion brands at all. I'm sure, there are others who are looking to do it already. So it'll be a little later, but I think I will have to get into that. We will have to start doing that. Yeah.
So, any closing remark, that a message that you want to leave with before we conclude this?
I think it'll be good for people to start looking at homegrown brands, local brands. I'm not talking about sustainability alone. I think what's handmade, what's homegrown, because what you're getting there is, I think every brand, when it's small, when it's growing, is very, very close to the process. Every founder is close to the process, and they do make sure that what's coming out has quality, and is unique in its own way. Everyone wants to stand out, it's very unique. Eventually, then of course, when you start picking up volumes, it becomes a bit, designs are repetitive. Everything else is very repetitive. I think it'll be good for people to start looking at local brands, working with them, understanding, supporting them in any way they can, either through, if they find something great in a company, which is what I always do. When I be whoever it is with, if I find something really amazing, I like a product, I shout out, I give a shout out, and I talk about it in social media and tell my friends, this is what I use, this brand, I think you should try it out. And I think it's good because it gives them that, one person, it's not one person, every person that touches the brand, if they all do that, can you imagine? It's free marketing, but it helps a little brand grow, and it's reaching out to more people. People are more aware of the good brands that are out there as well. I think it'll be good for people to do that. For small businesses in India, I think encourage them, and I think we'll really go places. And similarly with sustainability, I think be really specific about your choices, because what you wear says a lot about who you are as a person as well. I'm not judging you based on you picking up a fast fashion brand, but I just think twice before you buy something. Is it really essential? Even if you're buying our products, is it really essential? Do you really need to pick that piece up? And if you are buying it, pick it because it is for a special moment, and you don't want to just use and throw something. You want it to last forever. So just that and nothing else.
Well, wonderful. I think you don't always find businesses who say that, do you really want to buy my product?
I
So,
told you, I'm not a typical businesswoman, Nanju.
no, that's in fact, the digital business is all about uh, driving to sale and closing the sale quickly. So the moment you insert a thought that do you really want to buy, only then you click to buy. So I don't know if you actually put that even in your along with the product, that do you really want to buy this?
No, I don't. I don't do that. But I'm telling everyone else.
Probably it'll be a statement. I think people will take a screenshot of it and send it out that there's a brand which is actually at the time of purchase, it says, do you really want to buy me?
Do you really want to buy this? And then, hopefully, I don't know. I mean, never know. If I really flip the coin and then do that, maybe it'll work for me or maybe it won't. But something worth
it will surely make a statement that you actually want to make. At least that, be a informed, conscious buyer.
Yes. So, yes. Yeah.
I think wonderful. I think I don't know slow fashion, but I guess sustainability gets into too many complications. But I think a conscious producer is how perhaps what I've understood with all the conversation I've had with you is that Slowthread is a conscious brand and catering to conscious customer. So I think that's a wonderful space, and wish you all the best. And the audience, listeners, please do follow this. And if you think you're a conscious buyer, then you should give it a shot. Click on the
think before you buy.
Well, if they're conscious, then they know they want to buy. So, or at least they look it up, and whenever you think you want to acquire one, then at least you know where to go for. So good, and do support small businesses, like Archana said. Do support conscious producers, like she is. Do give a lot of thought to even after use. While she did talk about caring for clothes, how do you care and all that, I think you should listen to the second part of the conversation if you have missed it. But I think it's very important. It's part of that. And also try to use it. I mean, give new life to your used clothes also, because I think that's one big way of being sustainable and being conscious. Because if you keep dumping it, it just fails the purpose. So thank you once again, and come back to Future Fast and Do share your feedback, and also do give your feedback to Archana. She is very receptive, so do engage with her. You can reach her. Her coordinates are right below this podcast, so you can reach her and engage with her as well. Thank you so much, Archana. Once again,
So
thank you.
much. Thank you, Nanju. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely day.